Hi, my name is Max Mandel, and I'm here to answer the question, why does the Sonata for Viola and Piano by Rebecca Clarke stand the test of time? Answer number one is that it's a really good piece. So this piece was written in 1919 when Clarke was 33 years old, and she submitted it to a competition hosted by Elizabeth Sprague Coolidge, who was sort of the great patron of American chamber music. Out of loads of anonymous submissions, it tied for first place with the jury. They asked Coolidge to cast the deciding vote, and she picked the other piece, which was by Ernest Bloch. It's known that the jurors said afterwards that Rebecca Clarke must be a pseudonym because a woman couldn't possibly have written such a great piece. Answer number two is that violists need repertoire. Okay, so traditionally we didn't really get our due until later. Rebecca Clarke was also an accomplished essayist and speaker on music. And one of the things she talks about is imagining Mozart, who loved the viola. Sort of going, go on, let's give the old viola like a nice little bit of music to play. And a violist of the era being shocked and going, oh, am I gonna have to practice now? There's no Beethoven viola sonata. Brahms's sonatas he originally wrote for clarinet, although he was very happy to write them for viola as well. But we need repertoire. So when we discover a piece like the Clarke sonata, we'll play it. So it's funny, I run into people all the time who go, I've never heard of this work, but all violists have, because we love it and we're happy to play it anytime. Answer number three, Rebecca Clarke was a freelance musician. So she was a real player, and you can feel it when you're playing the piece. She really understands how the viola works. It makes it very satisfying to play. She started the violin at the age of 9 and came to the Royal Academy, and she ended up studying composition with Charles Stanford, and he recommended that she play the viola because she would understand composition better from the position of the viola, which is actually funny because it's something apparently Johann Sebastian Bach said about playing the viola, that he could judge the harmony better from the viola line. She had a very tyrannical, probably abusive father, very difficult relationship with him, and she left home in her early 20s to live on her own, which, when you think in the early 1900s, it's kind of a shocking thing for a middle-class woman to do. So she was immediately thrust into the world of London, hustling for gigs, playing the viola, writing songs for friends, composing, playing. She was one of the first women to join a professional orchestra. So she really, really hustled and worked and played. She was part of the early days of the BBC. She was in an all-female quartet. She toured the world. Just an amazing career as a player. So by the time she's 33 years old and sets down to write a major work for herself, she knows the viola. And when I play it, I think, gosh, I'm in touch with a player who is really a virtuoso and an incredibly thoughtful player as well as composer. My fourth answer to the question of why does the piece endure is the US-UK special relationship, which I know a little bit about, having lived in both countries. Rebecca Clarke had an American father and a German mother, and coincidentally, she was trapped in the US during both World Wars because she'd been on tour during World War I. She ended up being trapped there. And then she got stuck there during World War II because she was visiting her brothers, where she actually met the love of her life at the age of 56 and sort of lived happily ever after on the Upper West Side. So I think both countries can kind of claim her as their own, which may say something about her popularity, that she's got this kind of bicontinental thing going on. There's a fascinating radio interview in New York late in life where she was interviewed about Myra Hess, the pianist, because the interviewer was doing a program about her and knew that Clarke knew her. And as they're talking, Clarke says, "Oh yes, well, Myra, played some of my music at a concert, and I think I have a program." She pulls out a program of a concert from Wigmore Hall of her own music, and the interviewer doesn't know who Clarke is. He knows that she's a musician. He doesn't know that she's a composer, and you hear him realizing in real time who he's talking to. So then they come back and do another program. So late in life, in the 70s, she sort of there was a revival of interest in her, and she actually got to see people rediscovering her work. So she lived long enough, she had such a long, happy life. She lived long enough to see people take an interest again in New York and America. So that might be part of the reason why this piece gets a lot of attention. She heard it performed again and published again near the end of her life. Okay, my final answer for why this piece is so popular is that it's really, 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 really good. It's an amazing piece that just is virtuosic, touching, challenging, goes to all kinds of different places. It's got great writing for the piano and the viola, and I would say that it just hits that sweet spot between being intellectually challenging for the listener, but very affecting. She sort of, I think, understood through years of writing and performing, how to find her own voice and also be crowd-pleasing. It's a perfect piece for the time because it doesn't sound conservative, but it doesn't sound too avant-garde or atonal. And I think that's one of the reasons why it lasts. We can approach it now and be fascinated by it, but also, really be moved to tears. I mean, I always am when I play it. So I hope people, get to know the Viola Sonata. They also check out all her other pieces, like great piano trio, the Rhapsody for cello. There's a really lovely duo for viola and clarinet. In the last 20 years or so, there's been a real resurgence in interest in Clarke, and things are getting published, and there's just loads of good music. She's one of my favorite composers, and this is one of my absolute favorite pieces to play.